Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, or whatever time zone it is whether you're in the world. It is your Lore Saviour for what I feel is the penultimate Chicago by Night campaign diary recap using Vampire the Masquerade 5th Edition rules. And before we get started, there are two things I want to highlight. First of all, you're going to probably hear noises from two separate sources. The first of which comes from my left. Council and whatnot are redoing a footpath out there, so that's going to be pretty noisy with some geezers and their diggers, and there's one guy out there just picking his nose with his Labrador, so that's a lot of fun. And another source is going to come in from my right, as family members are doing stuff directly outside my bedroom because they're inconsiderate. Cutting back to the game in question, quite a lot happened, as one would might imagine, given I am declaring this to be what I feel is the penultimate recap session. We start off, or at least my notes start off, with Brujah player speaking to Anita Wainwright, the de facto Baron of Chicago, talking about all sorts of things, primarily to do with the hatred Anita has over the Garou, the Lupines, for many reasons I'm not going to get into because of a whole variety of lore reasons, but it's all to do with the War of Chicago, which is very close to repeating itself, shall we say. And there were conversations regarding Prince Kevin Jackson and how incompetent he appears to be, or at least that's how I've presented him here, which, to be fair, all of Loden's child, I should say, are pretty fucking incompetent. I think the only one who's got their shit together properly is Horatio, and it's really him just specialising in one specific thing, but all of them really are very weird and wacky in their own delightful way. And it's also mentioned in various editions of Chicago by Night that the prince does not really have, well, Loden in most cases, doesn't really have much of a control over the city because there's too many and there's far too many kindreds there for him to completely control over. It's really the Primogen that calls the shots here. But regardless, there was a big old conversation about Kevin Jackson's incompetence, not that either Anarch would be fully aware of the whole political makeup here. And I did say either Anarch because it's Brujah player is very much leaning towards the Anarch regime of things now, which is a very interesting choice indeed, for reasons I've spoken about and discussed about many times before. And it's all very exciting to see, that direction shift that way. And Brujah player is sort of acting as a messenger of Anita now, finding out stuff to do with the Sabbat, the Camarilla, and any Garou presence within the city. It was also mentioned that Balzavar has been offed by hunters, because that came up as well. If you don't know who Balzavar is, go and read Chicago by Night 1st through 5th edition, so 1, 2, and 5th edition, basically. And yeah, it kind of ended with them receiving a text message from the Malkavian player, who was going to have this big old meeting with the Garou. And the rest of the coterie came forth, but we'll get onto that in just a moment because quite a lot happened in between all of this, and most of the action once more revolved around the Lasombra player, all still trying to catch up with the emotions of their deceased, shall we say, lover who had their fucking brains blown out by Harry Milliner at the end of the previous session, and using their contact of Crook and their ghoul, Alex, that is the ghoul of the Lasombra, and they were able to put together some sort of plan of getting this shit cleaned up, and blood and gore and bloods and the rest of it. And Crook, they've established a bit of a friendship now, and Crook was very sympathetic towards this, and he's encouraging the Lasombra to go and make him pay whoever it was. And there was a bit of a discussion towards the end of their specific scene, how they're going to, Lasombra player is going to sort out this whole issue with Horatio, the thing getting them to speak to Naomi, and Crook gave them some advice of what to do in future sessions, way into the future, that should well be. And in between all of that, there was one of the biggest changes to the plans and to future sessions that I had planned, in that it occurred to me just before I started the session that the place where the lover was killed and the the Sabbat, the true Anarchs I should say, the Sabbat and the Black Spiral Dancers arriving occupies a similar sort of environment, like some abandoned industrial thing, whatever. And it made me think, well, why not make them the same place? Why not, when Lasombra players sorting all this shit out, trying to compose themselves and all put a plan together, have the Sabbat and the Black Spiral Dancers arrive on scene? which, it's a good idea, rather than making too much work for myself. So, the idea that I thought was going to happen in this case is that Lasombra player and Nosferatu Crook was, they were gonna, wait it out, so they didn't, be seen by them potentially. Like, if they, poking their head outside, they could potentially be seen. But no, Lasombra player went and go and had a look, which, again, is a perfectly normal reaction for most people would have. And of course, as that was a decision I made, I now had to stick through with it. And I described people in, like, weird, like, BDSM sort of get-up sort of scenario. These weird mangy dogs, as it were, and they made a roll to recognise like the fiends on all fours, and I described them as really mangy dogs. And they saw an individual like gelled up, like spiky hair, which basically was confirmed to be Inks. Although with the successes that they got an impression that this may well have been that individual. So then it became a very short yet stressful sneaking mission, trying to get Lasombra, Crook, and the body, what was left of it, of the deceased Touchstone, because the Lasombra player wanted to give them some form of a burial, or rather presenting the body in such a sense so somebody could find it and connect it to the scene of this crime, which I had then revealed that pretty much everybody inside that house had been slaughtered by the Hecata, just to make sure that there was no stones left unturned sort of thing, which is pretty horrific. But again, it's rather befitting for the Giovanni, either with those mafioso fame. And Harry being that sort of, emotional deranged nutter, as I've now presented him to be, it's rather fitting that he would just slaughter everything to do with this individual. Kind of like Uncle Paulie Franchetti from The Darkness on crack, sort of thing. And if you know what I'm referring to there, then you are a person of great culture, because that source material has been a great inspiration for how I present and appreciate horror and the political stories thereafter. But it was a really, in a sense, a really sweet scene between Crook and the Lasombra player, going through all these emotions and trying to work things out. Because it was nice that the Lasombra player was able to confide in these elements and these personal elements with Crook, who really initially I did not see the two of them hitting them off together. But I know as the sessions have gone on, that's kind of what I've been going towards. But on the initial encounter, I thought, okay, Crook's going to be an antagonist here. But it's nice that through my players' actions and these unexpected things that they do, they really do flip things on their head. And I really like that, with these games. I don't really want to railroad my players here. Now, of course, that being said, having these plans change and the Lasombra player now aware of the Sabbat and from their understanding, werewolves working together, this doesn't bode well with the Malkavians meet up with the Garou, chatting away with the rest of the Garou at this pub. So everybody would then convene together at this pub known as the Bulldozer. And in between all of this, the Brujah player, I think it was actually a little after this actually, the Brujah player had received a text message from their sire with pictures of their loved one called Lauren, with just the caption, "She's safe," which added some sense of security, which I would later break, so keep your eyes peeled for that, and your ears, in fact, don't go away. So there was a very intense scene like just before they entered where, there was this sharing of information because they had a group chat sort of thing, where the Lasombra player told the group about what's happening. They had Crook take pictures of everything, which I think was a very good bit of quick thinking there, and then sent it to this group chat, which definitely isn't a Masquerade breach at all. Not that it matters, for reasons we shall soon explore. Which obviously got the shackles of the Brujah player up, and when they got there and found out that everything was happening the way it was, because they just had to walk around the corner, they didn't want to be there. They wanted to go off and sort this issue, and then there was all this arguing and so forth, and all these emotions that were spinning forth. So it was a very intense and stressful situation, and it was interesting seeing the party, the coterie I should say, sort of bicker at each other, like all at odds to each other. And there's of course the Malkavian player who's sort of like stuck in the middle with it all. It's never easy being a vampire in the world of darkness. It's a really great bit of roleplay from all of them, just really biting into their emotions there. And as I'm saying this, I realise I don't think we did the bonus point that I usually do for experience. Oops. Oh well. Anyway, going back to the scene, they then entered this pub, bar, whatever, potato, and there was the Garou of the previous recap that I mentioned. I think I mentioned it in the spoiler section of the previous one, but in case I didn't, there was a Red Talon Fjord, there was a Silent Strider, Ragabash, there was the Glasswalker, Hacker Geek, who was also a Ragabash, who was in the thing proper. There was obviously Savannah, the Black Fury Philodox, and then at some point they would summon a Shadow Lord Arun, who I called Andrei Rostovich, going for a very stereotypical Russian thing here. They're kind of based in that part of the world, traditionally. Part of my original idea, there'll be this bit of discussion where they would talk about this, that, and the other, and Harry Milliner's name would be dropped, which actually, his name was only dropped outside of the pub, because if you listen to the spoiler section, you know why, so I'm not going to talk about that here. But of course it didn't. What was actually brought up is that the Garou and these Sabbat vampires are working together, and they showed this to Savannah. And of course, she knew what this was, and then, shit hit the fan very fucking quickly as they kicked everybody else out, and they were summoning, the rest of their pack, and Andre, who was very clearly detached, but very much in a superior position. Just before that was happening, there was also the reveal of what all those glyphs different mean. It was basically what was it? Bone or Reeks of Piss, who was at the pub actually, basically taunting them, basically saying there's a bunch of vampires that hide in this club called the Abyss, and they're a bunch of pussies. That's basically what it came down to. So if that's what you worked out from the previous recap session, congratulations. Give yourself a pat on the back and a gold fucking star. So that was fun for me, and it was kind of funny for some of the other players too. I don't think the Lasombra player appreciated it too much being called a pussy, but you know what? This Garou is somewhat of a dickhead, and it was a bit of a laugh, a bit of banter, as we say in the barely United Kingdom. So going back to the clusterfuck, as it were, with it all coming together, the Black Spiral Dancers and the Sabbat again working together to take over Chicago. And this Andre figure, this big roided man who looked like he's in his 60s, so very stereotypical Arun behaviour, as it were. He's kind of revealing that, Chicago is now at war. The promise of Kevin Jackson has been broken. But for those of you who are unaware or have forgotten, the Garou and Kindred are not supposed to get in each other's business. Specifically, the Garou are not to get involved with Garou business. And the Garou could pick off any vampire who was in any district after a certain number. I don't really remember it off the top of my head. And obviously part of that would be with vampires and the Garou doing stuff together. And of course, the return of the Black Spiral Dancers and the Sabbat is obviously a breaking of that. And the Garou don't really understand the difference between a Camarilla, Anarch, and Camarilla. Why would they? I mean, all the way through the Garou that were present in this scene were referring to the Sabbat as Sabbat vampires, because they were saying it how it was pronounced, and no one corrected them, which I think was a very wise choice, not to piss them off. Unlike the Brujah player, who when asked, who else did you inform about this, Brujah didn't cough up the right piece of information. So, which I think was a very interesting choice, not to piss off, trying to toy with this very powerful and strong individual, but hey-ho. It then led to the Garou, revealing who they were, who Savannah was. The two of them were elders, and then the rest of the pack that were present, which then got the Brujah player to admit that actually they informed the sheriff, Damien, but they didn't say that they informed the Anarchs as well, and they did that before they entered the pub, which is something I did not expect, which is bloody stupid, given that's the whole fucking MO of the Brujah player. They want to be like this messenger, this media, this middle person between the two of them, so of course they're going to inform them that this shit's hitting the fan. But yet, once again, the really simple decisions really surprised me. And it's because of all of this that the War of Chicago is now happening a session or two earlier than I anticipated, which is a really fucking awesome thing. Like the characters came together, they talked about their issues, and they presented it to the right people so something could be done. So actually, the Garou now have the drop on the Black Spiral Dancers and the Sabbat, where previously that wasn't going to be the case. I can't say at the moment what was going to happen because of spoilers. I will talk about that in just a moment. But what happened is that the Garou present have now forced the coterie, if you've got any fucking honour, you're going to join us in this fight. Which probably means they're all going to die, because they're against the Sabbat, and the Black Spiral Dancers, and these three characters are not built for combat. And it was kind of fitting in a scene that would happen just after, but before that, the Glasswalker, who I've named Meta the Verse, or more threateningly, George, spoke to the Lasombra player, because he had been spying on his sisters, kinfolk, who had been going in and out. They're regulars of the club, and he, hey, I'll owe you a favour if you bar them from your club, and that was what happened. And now the Lasombra player is very happy they've now got a favour from one of the Garou. And there was a little fun, frightening moment actually, where the Lasombra player, because they had their club warded off from Garou, they were trying to work out, hold on, how can your sisters get inside? We're prepared, for all this shit or whatever. Well, they didn't say that, they just were very confused, and the Glasswalker did their best to describe kinfolk without describing kinfolk, trying to be a bit secretive about it. And it was fun for me, because I'd forgotten at that moment that the Lasombra player wasn't too well versed within the world of darkness. So when I mentioned this was a genuine fear and horror that had sprung upon them. And 5th edition doesn't cover wards for kinfolk. Ghouls and werewolves, yes, but there isn't one specifically for kinfolk, because they weren't trying to introduce too much of those elements at this point. They would then retcon those ideas at a later point. But in any case, I tend to ignore those bits anyway. But so seeing that unfold, this was both an in-character and a person reactions. That was pretty fun for me to do. But regardless, that's all happened and that was all sorted. And then the coterie sort of made their way in one of the many cars owned by the Lasombra player, all in turn, basically giving their final farewells, which was so fucking sad. We had the Malkavian player who told their sire to stay at home, kind of revealing the, all these things are hitting the fan at once, and with a particular dice roll, they just about managed to convince their sire to stay put. But their sire gave the message of, well, if this is Gehenna, I'm coming after you. Which, to be fair, in all intents and purposes, this is definitely one form of a cyclical Gehenna, if you trust the words of Beckett. You then had the Brujah player who... No, we'll get on to them last. We had the Lasombra player who messaged their ghoul, to close up the club, send everybody home, stay in their haven, their other private haven, tell Celia, the other Lasombra who works there, to stay at their place. Sort of goodbyes without goodbye sort of thing. This obviously got the ghoul very worked up. And that led to the Brujah player realising that they didn't have anyone to say goodbye to. They had all the people they could say goodbye to don't know they exist, or think they're dead or whatever, which was so fucking sad. They had a phone call from their sire, which was the best fucking goodbye that they could do. And as they were trying to reveal the final bits of information, because their sire's been on the move a lot, the phone was cut off with gunfire. So their fate's all up in the air at the moment, which just sort of added the sadness to it. Now, I didn't have to do that, but I'm a nasty cunt, so of course I'm going to. But to be fair, it was going to be kind of up in the air whether the sire was alive or not, and I think this is a great way to exercise that. Many different things are happening at once to remind everyone that the Hunters are all about. You've now got the Sabbat, the Black Spiral Dancers, you have the Garou Nation of Chicago, the Septs, I should say, the Camarilla, and the Anarchs, now all descending upon this one place for one complete fuck-up. And what do I have planned next time? Well, you're going to have to check out for the upcoming spoiler section, unless you're one of my players and you can politely fuck off, mate, and jog on. And if you're anybody else who wants to be surprised for the next session and doesn't want any spoilers, as it were, or at least what I think is going to happen next time, you could check out the various links in the description below. Below you'll find the various links to one social media and the Lore by Night Discord server, which you should definitely join. We have the dankest of memes, no addition wars, and if we get to 1,000 subscribers, well, members on that server, I should say, I'm going to be running some vampire games for you, and we're going to stream them on the Discord server, so that's going to be fun for you lot, I'm sure. You'll also find lots of books that I've been using for my Vampire the Masquerade games that you can include in your own VTM Chronicles as well. You purchase those with those links, I get some of the money back because I'm an affiliate there, so I can provide more lore dives, character creation guides, and all that fun stuff you like me doing for you for free. So don't miss out on this wonderful opportunity of supporting your favourite independent creator on YouTube rather than fat conglomerates in Sweden. Now with that shit out of the way, let's carry on and head straight first into what I feel is going to be the finale of my Chicago by Night campaign. So a second War of Chicago's now in place in a way that I wasn't quite expecting it to happen. You know, as I mentioned before, there's going to be a good conversation, so the Black Spiral Dancers and the Sabbat would have the upper hand, so they get the players to go off and deliver a message. I had a bit of a cruel game set up for them, as you may remember me mentioning. If not, it would involve one person going to deliver the message and the other two coterie members being chased down and around of this facility, which is very cruel and wicked of me indeed. But because of my players thinking in their communication and the Lasombra players like wanting to investigate the noise they could hear outside, it's now the fact that the Garou, the Camarilla and the Anarchs now all have the drop on the Black Spiral Dancers and the Sabbat, who seem to be congregating in like this abandoned warehouse, so they are a complete disadvantage. But of course, they're not the only ones there, and it's going to be a complete shitstorm in the rest of the city, because I'm going to have this like placed around a bunch of riots that are happening in protests, and of course America Police being America Police, they're going to escalate the violence first, but this time it's going to be with the SI instigating things, so they can use this as an opportunity to hide like their hunters raiding havens and taking out any kindred they can lay their fucking eyes on. They're going to be focusing their attention on the Lasombra, because you may remember we have this whole Project Blacklight thing going on in this iteration of Chicago, rather than what the other things are supposed to be in the book and the core book. But I've talked about that in a previous recap thing. So the players are going to be driving along in the Lasombra player's car, and there's going to be like a fucking huge explosion that's going to completely throw things off course, like a missile strike. They're really going OTT with fucking this. Like not taking the car, but it's like going to hit the car, cause the car to swerve at the rate, and chances are that it's going to total that car, or they're going to like crash it into a lamppost or a wall or something, which is going to do some damage to the players, but they're going to have to be forced to get out and participate in one way or the other, just heading to the facility, run, scurp, or hide, or whatever. And there's going to be various ways to test the player's mantle of how dangerous this is going to be. They're going to have an encounter with Garou. They're obviously going to encounter Inks, whose whole thing, he was going to basically fuck off and do his thing with the Sabbat. But now that's happening much early. He's probably going to hunt down and try and find Brujah player. There may well be encounters with the Hakata as well, who have been caught off guard by this as well. If so, I need to work out how to best do this, because I do want to give the Lasombra player the satisfaction of killing off Harry, or at least doing great harm to him, or seeing him being killed. I think one way or another it'll probably be by her hands. You know, as long as he dies in that last session, or is like torpored, like staked or whatever, then all ends well. And there's also going to be some sadness of the Malkavian player as well, because I do intend to kill off her sire here, which is very sad, because I've loved this relationship between these two. But I feel it is necessary, because I feel that it will serve as an important catalyst with the Malkavian player, and the Malkavian player like spreading their wings and doing more by themselves and not having their sire do everything for them. But there is going to be like a nice moment where the Malkavian sire is going to rescue the Lasombra player. Like they're going to be hit by werewolves or hunters or whatever, and the Dana Malkavian sire is going to like use celerity and like tackle them out of the way, taking most of the hits themselves, sort of thing, and then try and find Malkavian player. Hopefully the players are going to scarper and do their own things. I need to present this up in such a way where they will have to split up, because they're going to go after their own agendas things. I'm probably going to throw in the Touchstone of the Brujah player here, because they've been a very key thing here, that they've been part of the riots and protesting or whatever, and I really want those two to meet. Brujah's sire is going to be alive. They're going to have like help them out fight Inks as well. They survive the hunt with the SI, but whether they survive this other encounter will be down to dice rolls and things. So it's going to be a very intense session with a lot going on, so I'm going to be juggling quite a lot of balls here all at once. Now, of course, this also answers the question of, like, what am I going to do with the Camarilla and the Anarchs, and who's going to win, who's going to die? Well, truth be told, I've got no fucking idea at this point, and I don't think there's going to be an immediate way for the players to find out. Now, part of me thinks that Kevin Jackson won't be there. Knowing what he does in the second War of Chicago, he is a fucking pussy. Well, I say that. He's very smart, like, shrewd. He's very shrewd and cowardly. Like, with that adventure, he manages to convince Garou to fuck off elsewhere. So he does survive that way and use his own political skills to get out of harm's way. But I don't think that can be avoided this time, as communication and whatnot has increased a lot since then. We'll have to see. I don't know, there's a lot of things to juggle here. My main attention, of course, is going to be on what the coterie does. And unless they specifically want to hunt somebody down and find out, hey, what happens to such and such, I will determine it in session on a fucking dice roll what happens to them. Because it's really anybody's game here. Now, of course, this being the penultimate, what I'm doing now, the session just gone is the penultimate thing. This is probably going to be the final session. So what do I have planned after that? Well, as I've said a few times before, I'm quite fed up of running Vampire. I've run Vampire like pretty much constantly for the last 5 years, and I want a bit of a break. Well, I should be a bit more specific. I'm a bit fed up of running V5. I don't have anything against the system. It's just what I've been playing and running for almost 5 years at this point. I would like a bit of a break, and I would like to play other things, which, you know, on the one hand does upset the players a little bit, only because they've been enjoying this session, these sessions, this game, and, you know, it's coming to an end. But I have made it clear that unless one of the players die, this isn't like a full stop to the story, that I do want to pick it up and like carry on into the future. Or maybe we play as new characters, you know, and then that's a new story, like new kindred within this new Chicago with these riots and whatnot, and trying to work things out as they go, or they're experienced, or whatever that may be. But there's so many different ideas I can throw here. I just want to run something else, basically. Like, there's been some interest on me running werewolf for people. One of the players is a massive changeling, the Dreaming Nut, and has this idea that they want to run for us. And I've never played changeling before, and I don't know a lot about changeling either, so I'm quite excited for that, of course. But yeah, there's just a lot of potential on what we can do next. So this isn't like a stopping forever. This is just like a little break so we can do some other things. And it'll be interesting to see how this final session wraps up, and it'll probably be very emotional for everyone involved because we all have very different feelings and attachments to it. But the important thing is that with this big climactic end, that there is some satisfaction found with everybody involved. Hopefully, nobody dies. Relating to the characters and none of their touchstones, one sire, I do wish to kill off Dana because it's all part of a prophecy thing that I've been leading up to. But if she survives, it will have to be some very, very good player intervention here. But we'll see. We'll have to see how things turn out, because I'm sure there's going to be lots of surprises here as there have been with everything else. And I'm really proud of my players, you know, for coming together and like presenting this information, and I'm kind of glad that things are going the way that they are, because this hasn't been me railroading them. I feel that this has been a lot more of an interesting direction than anything that I could plan, and that's why I love running that's why I love playing games the way that I do. Like, it's all come about, for the most part, through their story, through their characters, their ideas, their concepts, and their interactions with the world. Sure, I threw in the Hakata in there because I wanted to include the Hakata here. I included the werewolves here because they have a very important role within Chicago, and you can't have a Vampire Chronicle without the Sabbat or the Black Spiral Dancers. Well, you can without the Black Spiral Dancers, but within Chicago, you know, it would be remiss not to include at least one of them here. It's been a lot of fun, and I can't wait to see how I wrap up my first full Chronicle that hasn't had any hiccups because of weird players. So yeah, do check out next time to see how we end my Chicago by Night Chronicle campaign recap session diary thing. Yeah, check out the various links in the description below if you haven't done already. Follow me on social media, join the Lore by Night Discord server, buy various books, give me money, give yourself some great books as well, and I'll see you on the next upload, whatever that may well be for you. And until next time, farewell.